for our Dharma talk. We'll begin by chanting, open the sutra. An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teachings. And now we'll have a Dharma statement, a Dana statement by Trey.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Anne. Sorry, I started the recording right when you were speaking. My bad. Yeah, a brief statement about the Dana. In Buddhism, when practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of Dana Paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice Dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment or expectation when opportunities arise. And those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a Dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. And you can do this directly. And Sister Peace, where can we send Dana to you? I have a physical address in Tennessee. Is that good? That's good. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So you'll post that on the chat for people to see, right? Okay, good. Sister An Nghiem, better known as Sister Peace, is a nun in the tradition of Plum Village and of beloved late Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who dedicated her life to bringing the practice of mindfulness to people around the world, including educators and young people, artists, and politicians. Sister Peace has been actively involved in sharing her experiences in the practice of mindfulness to help people understand the aspiration of Thich Nhat Hanh and Dr. Martin Luther King to build the beloved community. She lived in and was ordained as a nun at Plum Village, France in 2008 and received the Dharma lamp to teach in 2017. Before Sister Peace became a nun, she lived in Washington, D.C., where she earned a degree in business administration and accounting from Georgetown University. She also worked for the executive office of the mayor. She's organized retreats around the world in Asia, Africa, Europe, and North America. And she's facilitated retreats for people of color, business leaders, Silicon Valley folk, educators, artists, and others. Most recently, her heartfelt focus of service and practice has been with the children in the Shelby County Juvenile Detention Center, a jail for children in Memphis, Tennessee. She is also on a virtual team offering mindfulness and the arts during COVID with students at East High School in Memphis. And now Tasia would like to say a few words of welcome as well.
Thank you so much for coming, Sister Peace. Sister Peace took care of me when I was at Plum Village, and I mean took care of me because I arrived sick. And but we got to know each other, and we've reconnected within the last year or so. And now she's visited Great Tree. But we have other things in common besides Thich Nhat Hanh and Zen, in that we are both Catholic Buddhists or Buddhist Catholics. And are the products of Catholic schools. So that's one thing I wanted to say. And the other thing is speaking about Nirvana is from the Soto Zen perspective, this is a perfect time to speak about it because next week we celebrate Buddha's death and Nirvana on February 15th. And so we're going to have a sesshin. Well, actually, it's this week, isn't it? It's sesshin. Well, next week, yeah. We're going to have sesshin around that. So this is a great introduction. So thank you very much for coming.
Dear respected Thai, dear respected Sister Chan Kong, my two teachers, dear ancestors, dear family, dear beloved community. I am really happy to have this opportunity to share with you today, and I hope that you will also be able to share a little bit back as well. So, as I said, my name is Sister Peace, and I want to tell you that the talk today was inspired by our teacher's new book, Enjoying the Ultimate. And I have had a fascination would be the wrong word, but a deep interest in Nirvana for a long time. I don't consider myself a Buddhist scholar. My method of teaching is something different, and yet, of all of the things that might have captured my attention, it was this one. And I remember there are two occasions that really brought my attention to Nirvana. And it was when I was at Plum Village, there was a Chilean Soto priest who came to visit. And he gathered around some of us, and I personally was wrapped with what he was sharing. And what he shared is the other thing that I'm very interested in, but they are one and the same. And that is, he spoke Dogen's famous koan, Body, Mind, Fall Away. And of course, in speaking such, it touched me so deeply. I didn't understand it, and it took me a long time to get there. And maybe I still don't understand it, but I would say that both letting it all fall away and Nirvana as the cessation of suffering is not a place. It's not a place. It's not somewhere that we would go to when we die, or when all things in our lives are perfect. I just want to start right off by saying that it is part of our path. It is our path. As you've heard my teacher say, happiness is the way, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. And similarly, I think we could say with Nirvana. But let me pause for a moment and just tell you a little bit about this book that's really exciting for I think the world, that now our community is starting to translate many of the works that Thai did in Vietnamese. And so he chose to do a translation of the Nirvana chapter of the Chinese Dhammapada, as well as a commentary. And there are many such things in Vietnamese that have not been translated into English. And Sister Chan Duc, who in my opinion is probably the best translator of Thai, and she wrote she helped to translate the book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, which is still a book that's beloved some 40 or so years later. Now, the interesting thing about the, as Ty writes, he also reminds us of, and reminds us that what Nirvana is and what Nirvana isn't. And what it is not a place. It is not somewhere we go after death. It is right here and right now. It can be experienced in the present moment. And all it takes is to recognize, through practice, we practice to release our suffering. When we are in a state of freedom, of liberation, of peace, to use a word that's popular, although I have some reservations about it, there's a word called, that we often use in Buddhist circles, attain or attainable. To me, it's not even that, because we're already there. We just forget. We have to remember that what our natural state is. And when we can use the practices that have already been given to us, we can arrive, perhaps is a better place, and we can experience this beautiful state. I will give you an example. For me, once I was walking along, and the sun was just right, and I happened to look in the direction of a red rose, and I stopped in my tracks. Talk about everything falling away, and I just saw the rose. I was with that rose, and it was such a beautiful, beautiful feeling. And there was no awareness, of course, of everything around me. At the same time, I could see deeply into that rose. And the beautiful thing about that experience for me is that the recognition that it can be experienced. Here's another current thing, on demand. There would be times that I'd be in the monastery or anywhere, and I'd think, okay, it's time for me to go get arrested by a flower, and I would leave and go and take a walk. And what was I really saying? It's time for me to let what's happening fall away and find a place of peace, of calm, of serenity. And the great news is, here's the really great news, is that that nirvana, it does not have to be a 100% experience, right? My teacher often says we're part-time Buddhas, right? That there are those moments too when we are centered and solid and fresh, right? And we can touch the vastness of space, but we're not always in that state of being. We might not always have that perspective. And so similarly, we can experience nirvana to the extent that we have practiced and cultivated ease in ourselves, and where we've transformed suffering, even if it's for 10% of the time, maybe 25% of the time, maybe 90% of the time. But the beautiful thing is we can experience it. It is not, remember, a place. It is a state of being, a perspective, as you will. And with all the knowledge and experiences that we've already had, we can still touch this place in us. We're not caught, right? We have wonderful lapses of suffering, right? And there's so many things that we touch that we don't realize we touch. My dear friends, and I'm here at the moment in Baltimore, Maryland, with relatives, and there's this lovely being by the name of Cherry, who just happens to be a cockapoo. And talk about experiencing peace and ease and freedom when in the presence of that being. How many others experience that on a daily basis with four-legged or winged creatures that maybe live near them? When we're in those moments of touching and interbeing, those also are moments where we experience nirvana, where we experience the capacity to not only have interbeing with the people around us, but with all beings, with all life, animate and inanimate. Sometimes nirvana has been described as space outside of space, right? And that may put some of us off, like, what on earth is that? And, we don't have to worry about it, I think. It's a beautiful way for a Zen master to describe it. And, but if you think about it, when I think about it, when I'm in the process of being arrested by a flower, it is another space outside of the physical space that we're in. And I would imagine that you might have also experienced some of that. I think that I want to also bring up the path, right? What is the path, as I would say, to nirvana? And this is something that's also very, very familiar to us. And the Buddha has given it to us in the teachings. And specifically in the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And even more specifically, the Third Noble Truth, which is, we know that there is suffering, and we know that there is the cessation of suffering. There is the Nibbana. The word is actually used. And I must say that it took me a while to sort of get that and to see that connection. And also the eightfold path of right view, right? Right action, right mindfulness, etc. That when we practice like this and know that we're able to, even if for a short period of time, have the recognition and transform our attachments, our misunderstandings, our fears, the things that make us feel uncomfortable and make us feel oppressed. When we are able to see that that it's there, then that's really when we probably take the second step of practicing towards the cure, for that, practicing towards transforming those things, which comes, of course, first with understanding and love. I would say even love first, love of self, and love of wanting to and committing ourselves to being here on this planet and wanting to help other beings. This is the very simple bodhisattva vow, to come to this life time and time again so that we may be able to help other beings transform their suffering. And even while doing that, we can experience nirvana. Here I am. I came here for a funeral, and I also came here to help with family matters, especially my younger sister who's not well, and all the other dynamics that come along with a family. And I had an interesting insight, which was I could be in this situation, but I could also experience peace and freedom about it. And I wish I had the words to more fully describe what I mean, but I have been able to touch that. I have been able to touch that, to know that these are people that I love and I've known all my life. And there have been various things to, of course, complain about. This one does this one doesn't do that. But beyond all of that, there's just been a deep recognition, a deep love. And so even in the midst of trying times, I feel a calmness, which not only will help me, but it will also help my family. So really happy to have done that. So as we do our daily practice, we are able to touch, as I say, just even a percentage. And I think it's really cool to also know that the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, while they're living on earth, are able to abide in this part-time nirvana, right? Because here they are in this realm. I thought, okay, all right, now I'm cooking with gas, that these beautiful spirits, while here, also participate in part-time nirvana. I mean, like, how cool is that, right? And I remember also, here's another story when nirvana started to really bubble up in me, and of course, just continuing practice, I was able to have more understanding. But we had at Plum Village a calligraphy show. Of course, it was a beautiful presentation of Thai's calligraphies. And he sat down at his table and he invited us to give him quotes or things that he could put in a calligraphy and then give to us. And he didn't accept them all. People would say something, he'd go, and some he did, of course. Like people maybe wanted their name written in Vietnamese, and I was standing behind him, and I was nervous, needless to say, but something did strike me, and I offered it to him, and he looked and he went, and so I simply said, "Everyday Nirvana." So it is a calligraphy that I own that is packed away still in France, I think, but one day soon to have it. And it was really, it's very special to be able to have my teacher accept that phrase. And so I do my best to practice it. So when we're practicing, when we're on the path, and we're talking about the noble truth, whenever again we are experiencing, I have to think of a word other than cessation of suffering, but that's what it is. Then we know we are experiencing nirvana. And I think that, as for me, in my own experience, as I've had more experiencing, more, yes, the experiencing of it, the more it becomes, it's already real, but we open up more to the probability of having it, of experiencing it in our life more and more. And so I wanted to just maybe open it up for a moment, and I'd just like to hear what some of you may experience as nirvana, that you touch daily or perhaps just sometime, so that we can all hear and understand what it may be for others. Do you have any volunteers?
This is Norma bowing in. And Sister Peace, being with you, I experienced nirvana. I really so appreciate your wisdom and your openness. And just hearing you talk about the part-time nirvana really resonated with me. And also just the experience of being with your family, dynamics, is so true. Mm-hmm. And I must say that, I'm when I'm with nature, I experience nirvana a lot, but also I've been painting birds. Mm-hmm. And when I'm working on those paintings and experiencing those birds in a way I have not ever done before, it is just, it's bliss. It's nirvana. And also when I'm writing poetry and the poems just kind of come from someplace where I don't even know where they're coming from, that too is very helpful. And sometimes when I'm teaching Ikebana and I'm working with a student and I'm just experiencing what they've done, it's just beyond words. And I think that's that state. So thank you so much for being here. It's always wonderful to be with you. Norma bowing out.
Thank you so much. So what other nirvanas do we have out there?
I had a most amazing experience yesterday morning, reaching for the oats in my cabinet. I was going to make breakfast and I reached for them, and it was very powerful. It was like just the oats and me, and it was like my whole self just felt like nothing else was going on in the whole world. It was just great. So, that's my most unconventional experience of that lately.
Hmm. Do you have?
Jodo, I'm bowing in. I had an experience yesterday of just summarizing practice as no separation, or no separation from experience. So that was helpful for me. Just
Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that again? We had some echoing and didn't hear the first part.
I came up with a experience I call no separation, or no separation from experience. I found that helpful. Jodo bowing out.
Beautiful. Exactly. Wonderful way to put it. No separation from experience.
I'm finding it very valuable to, I can't, there, thanks. Finding it really valuable to contemplate the idea of many small moments, because, and it doesn't have to be some spectacular thing. That's really helpful, Sister Peace, because those moments are happening more and more for me. And something just as simple as, well, I love the reaching for the oatmeal experience. In the past, I've had those when I have been an artist in the past, and I was going for that. I was going for that feeling when something's coming through me, I'm connected to something bigger, I know I am, and something beautiful is manifesting through my hands. It's such a high. And it evaporated for me, and I was in a grief and a loss for years, off and on. It was an addiction. Not for every artist, I'm sure, but for me, I see it now. And now I can walk around my house and just be, it's connected to gratitude and being aware of something that's always there, but I don't always see it. The sunshine is coming through the window, and there's this moment of, oh, and I love that connection of the definition of nirvana is the lack of suffering. Wow, that's so simple. Wow, I'm lying in bed and nothing hurts right now. There's not a joint in my body that's aching. Wow. So it's simple, not easy, but I love hearing these small things. Thank you.
Yes. So we can see and we can chat more if there are questions or comments, but again, just to borrow from our teachers, not just Thai, many perhaps have said such things as there is no way to nirvana. Nirvana is the way, right? The path, there's no way to the sea. The path is that the sea is the path. And so we could put it in any way that we want. And I think too, I'll just close by saying that, nirvana is the practice of recognizing and changing our view. Recognition, mere recognition, right? Just noticing, just remembering. We forget all the time. So it's just remembering. We cultivate a memory that we can experience on demand, as they say, right? on demand, all the things we can have on demand. And this we can do. We start with these very small, simple things and realizing, oh, you're right. And so thank you so much for being present today, for your sharings thus far. And I also wanted to open it up in case other people have some things that they'd like to share or questions. We also happen to have some other Dharma teachers in the space with us, and so I certainly would invite them to also maybe pipe in and share some experience.
I raised my hand. Look at that. I have a couple of things. One is that one of the things that always occurs to me, and you kind of said recognizing and changing our view, but one of the things that I noticed early on in my Zen practice is how that Nirvana experience of freedom comes right after I take one step beyond resistance.
Oh, great.
And I think that's kind of what you're saying about the recognizing that resistance, that it's not maybe not a resistance that's helpful. It's something that we need to take that step. The other thing is when you talked about that, your experience of having that calligraphy made by Thai, what I had the question of, where do you think that came from? Did that just pop up for you? Or I assume there must have been some thought behind it, but how did that come about? I'm just curious.
Yeah. It's hard to sort of put into words. There you are. You're in the zone of your teacher, and Thai was not only our teacher, but our spiritual father. And you're on your P's and Q's and you're paying attention and you're aware, right? And him saying he wanted it to be a worthy thing to practice with. And so I have to honestly say, it just popped in, and it's taken all this time for me to be able to see what a gift the experience and the view of the state of being, that everyday Nirvana is right here, is right now. So in another maybe 20 years, you can ask me that question and I might maybe have the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Peace. Peggy here. In fact, I don't know if Miriam's here, but she's really got a great example of Nirvana. But what I've been reflecting on for some time is Thich Nhat defined Nirvana as letting go. Mm-hmm. And so that I've really been practicing with that, because I did a retreat once with a bunch of women at a hot springs, and we took turns. There was pools that were like 100 degrees, so they were warm. And we took turns, 3 of us at a time, floating people and meditating. And when you're being floated in water that isn't deep, you're not going to drown. I could really experience how I didn't let go. I could really experience my body, how it hung on to things. So we each had 20 minutes of being floated. And for 20 minutes, I was like, let go, let go, let go. So I'm just kind of reflecting on that this morning. Plus, I talked to a friend that was a midwife for years. And she just told me, she said, well, you know who's the worst at giving birth are advanced meditators and yogis. She said, they don't let go. They don't let go. Isn't that something? So she just told me that, and I was like, wow, okay. So there that is again, that challenge of letting go.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I same this week too, I had heard from somebody whose parent was in the end stage of life. And she said he seems to have trouble letting go. And then I thought, well, if letting go were easy, we'd be in nirvana all the time, right?
Mhm.
Every minute we'd be reaching for our oatmeal. And thank you, Anne, I'm never going to reach for my oatmeal without knowing I have an opportunity to enter the Pure Land now, here, together. So it was a wonderful talk. It's so nice being together all about. Sorry if I took too much time piggybacking out. I've been thinking about letting go a lot.
Perfect. Perfect.
I sometimes think that it's those moments that we call boredom or something. It's I keep thinking about this experience I had in the monastery. I had to sit in front of a shoji screen, and if you don't know what a shoji screen is, it's one of those. It has grids and it has paper, and it wasn't a shoji screen. It was a window like that. And I remember sitting there just being annoyed because it was such a boring thing to look at. And finally, at some point, I just kind of gave up that idea that this was not something I liked. And suddenly something that the words went through my head, you and I are the same thing. And I really, really felt it. It was like Anne and her oatmeal, like, and, of course I tried to get that experience back for a long time, and you can't do that. But just that moment, of getting past that resistance, or that past those, like, our view that you mentioned, Sister Peace, it's really, it's kind of the human dilemma of dukkha, wanting to have something to attach to, and recognizing that the moment is not something you can attach to, but it's the only thing that's there.
Mm, mm. Thank you, Tejo. Peggy's comment reminded me of something when I was in Hawaii. We hiked through some beautiful forest to get to a waterfall pool. And you cannot swim in a waterfall pool unless you let it all go. You struggle and she'll pull you in. You relax, she'll let you go. So thanks for that reminder, Peggy. I think Miriam, you were about to bow in.
Yes, I've been called by my dear friend Peggy and mentor. My husband passed last summer, and the 2 months that he was on hospice, there were people in the house, and we weren't used to having people in the house, and there was so much that had to be done for him. And it was just intensity like this. And I was on, and I felt like this inside most of the time. And I remembered that Peggy had said to me at one point, when I was taking care of him earlier, said, Miriam, you never rest. And there was this moment where, back when all these people were around, there was this moment where I just thought, I am so tired. And I sat down and completely let go of everything. And it's a moment that is deep, deep in every cell of my body. And I could be with it for 3 seconds, and then my mind. But what I've noticed after that is my body remembers that experience. And
I have discovered that I can stop and just remember my shoulders relaxing, and they relax, and I have tastes of that same moment. And I realize that my whole being is getting accustomed to the nourishment and the joy of that, which my mind doesn't take me to. And for somebody who has been thinking that the way to get there is to think the right kind of thoughts, this has been a miracle in my life. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. I love that. Not mind. Nirvana is not mind. It's a bumper sticker. Thank you.
This is Kate bowing in. I thank you so much, Sister Peace, for this beautiful experience, and Tejo as well, for bringing us all together. I so appreciate, Miriam, what you just said about it being in every cell of your body. I think that helps me understand how the experience I wanted to share is accessible at any time. I remember being on retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh once, and we were outside, sort of on an embankment, and there was a tree overhead, and I remember lying down near him. Sometimes I would get so relaxed around Thai that I would have to lie down if I could. That wasn't always possible to lie down, but it was like my being couldn't quite take it yet, couldn't quite figure out where to put all that relaxation. And I remember we were all just really taking it easy on this hill with him, and I closed my eyes, and the sun, was sort of through the leaves, so it was very speckled over my closed eyes, that experience when you're lying under a tree and the sun's filtering in. And I remember that felt much bigger than my body, and that experience just sort of transcended any sense of who I was, I guess, and was just deeply calming. And I knew that he was right there. My eyes were closed, but I knew that he was right there. And lately, whether it is that moment or like when I'm missing the people that I've lost recently, I realize that I can return to any moment with them because it's in my body, it's in every cell of my spiritual body. And then there's that experience of no separation that Jodo mentioned, that is, that also reminds me there's another way to experience time. That for me, the experience of everyday nirvana is also about transcending this limited idea of time that I have. That, well, that was then, but no, that it's any time I can go there because it's here. So Thai is here, my beloveds are here. And that's so real to me. Keep bowing out.
Thank you, Kate. Remembering. So our bumper sticker has expanded a little to say Nirvana is not mind. Nirvana is being. Do we have any others who'd like to share? Well, if not, then let me take this beautiful opportunity to thank you for your presence, for your attention, for your smiles, and for sharing your experiences too. And I look forward to joining you again at some time in the future. And I suppose now I turn it over to Tejo or Trey or Ann. Thank you so much. I have to give you my virtual hugs.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we can give back the merit. Trey or Ann, is there anything else we need to say here? I'm not getting, okay, I'm getting a no. Okay. So this is call and response. If one person could respond, I will call. We'll give back the merit. May the merit of this practice
May the merit of this practice
benefit all beings
benefit all beings
and bring peace.
and bring peace.
So we've already brought peace today. Thank you, Sister Peace. Thank you very much for coming. And there's information on where to send your dana in the chat. And I also put down the name of the book in the chat. Okay. Everyone have a good day.
Mm.